following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is TFangy coming to you with a review of arguably one of the worst Transformers figures I purchased last year in 2022, and it is a Transformers figure from a terrible line of Transformers action figures in general, and it is this figure right here. This is the Transformers Authentics Bravo Arcee figure. This has become the worst G1 styled Arcee figure that I have in my Transformers collection. The only other Arcee figure I could think of that I found lousier than this was my Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Deluxe Class Arcee figure from 2009, which I sold at a yard sale a couple of years ago. And yeah, but that was the movie verse version of Arcee. So out of all the G1 style versions of Arcee, this has become the worst of them all. Also, for those of you who have only subscribed to my channel recently, and those of you who haven't been following up with the Transformers Authentics line, Transformers Authentics was a line of Transformers action figures that was released for the first time back in 2017, and for lack of better grammar, the Authentics line has been viewed as being a quote-unquote poor man's line of Transformers action figures, and the Authentics line is divided into two size classes of Transformers figures. You have the 5-inch tall figures, which are known as the Authentics Alpha figures, and then you have the 3.5-inch tall action figures that are known as the Authentics Bravo line. Or is it that the Bravo figures are 5 inches and the Alpha figures are 7 inches? I think it's that. Yeah, the Authentics Alpha figures are 7 inches tall, and then the Authentics Bravo figures are 5 inches tall. And the idea behind the Transformers Authentics line is that these are action figures of the Transformers characters that have very simplified transformations. They are so simple in design to the point that they look like knockoff versions of Transformers figures, and it's not like third-party knockoffs that have been released in the last 1.5 decades where they rival official Transformers figures in top quality. These are like old-school knockoffs that you would have seen back in the 1980s, 1990s, and even into the early 2000s, where the plastic is low quality, and the overall transformation of the figures is very simplistic. And even with the suggestion on the box, it says people in this age group can buy the Transformers Authentics Bravo action figures. Now, Bravo Arcee is somewhat special in that she's the first figure in the Transformers Bravo line that comes with an actual laser gun accessory piece. Before her, every Transformers Authentics Bravo figure that was released did not have any type of weapon accessory. The closest to weapons accessories were Bravo Megatron's fusion cannon, which became his tank turret in his vehicle mode, and Starscream's null rays, but none of the Autobots had laser guns like this. And I've seen a couple of reviews of Authentics Bravo Arcee from other Transformers collectors, and when you transform Arcee into her vehicle mode, which, like every version of Generation 1 Arcee that's been released, she has a pink Cybertronian sports car for her vehicle mode. Her laser gun ends up transforming into the spire, or the racing post that sticks out of the back of her vehicle mode. I wouldn't call it a spoiler, but you get the idea. You stick it onto the top back section of her vehicle mode, and that's what it does. So here's Arcee inside her box. You've got a photo of her in her vehicle mode. Oh, there's her name on here. Got some artwork of here on top of her box, and I believe that's recycled artwork from the Transformers Earthrise Arcee figure that was released back in 2020. So technically isn't a photo of Arcee's Bravo figure here, but you get the idea. And so here's photos of her in her robot mode and in her vehicle mode. She transforms back and forth between both modes in 6 steps. And the photo is not a lie. If you look closely here on Arcee's legs, her legs are completely hollowed out. There's no sides or back section to Arcee's lower legs. They are just hollowed out completely, and that's partly has to do with how she transforms. I'm still uncertain if I'm going to actually show her transformation on camera or not, even though it's only 6 steps. But yes, one of the reasons why the artwork for Earthrise Arcee is used for the artwork here on this figure's box is because the Authentics line takes Transformers figures from the Evergreen designs. For those of you who don't know, what is the Transformers Evergreen design. Basically, when the Authentics line was released back in 2017, I can't remember if it was for the Transformers Earth Wars mobile game, or if it was for some of the Transformers comic books that were released through Hascon. I can't remember for certain, but what the Evergreen design is that the Transformers Evergreen designs are the versions of the Transformers action figures that have the most bland and generic versions and designs of Transformers characters. And the idea behind the Transformers Evergreen designs is that you don't know for certain exactly which Transformers series the characters are supposed to come from. They have the most common and generically associated features of each Transformers character that take design cues from all the various series and the most popular versions of the characters and just mash it all up into just one single solitary design. With the Evergreen design version of Optimus Prime, for an example, you can't tell when you look at at a version of Evergreen Optimus Prime if it's Generation 1 Optimus Prime, if it's IDW Optimus Prime, if it's the Transformers Marvel comic book version of Optimus Prime, if it's G1 Optimus Prime from the cartoon, if it's Optimus Prime from the Earth Wars video game, if it's Optimus Prime from the War for Cybertron trilogy, if it's Optimus Prime from the Prime Wars trilogy, you get the idea. If it's Optimus Prime from the Aligned continuity, you get the idea. And so that's why Arcee, if you actually take the time to look over Authentics Bravo Arcee's design, she isn't, even though she's designed with the intent of being a version of Generation 1 Arcee, she does take some design cues from her appearances in IDW's comic books, the Earth Wars video game, and the War for Cybertron trilogy series. So you get the idea of that. Looking at her, or even inside her packaging, looking like there on her face, it does look like Arcee when she would have been looked younger. I mean, if you look at the face sculpt here, and I apologize for my camera on the glare of her and its white plastic, but if you look at that compared to the design, her design from the image from the Transformers Earthrise line, it definitely looks like a younger version of Arcee. I don't know if that was the intent or not, or if it's just the way the design of the head sculpt finally ended up turning out. But yeah, that is the idea here when you look at Authentics Bravo Arcee. The Authentics Bravo line is one of the last lines of Transformers action figures that that has plastic on the packaging. It's been announced. It was announced last year in 2022. The Authentics Bravo line is going to continue into the year 2023. Arcee is the standard single Authentics Bravo figure that's been released in Wave 5 of the Authentics Bravo line. The next figure being released, which is the Solid J figure of Wave 6, is Optimus Primal. Optimus Primal will be the first Beast Wars character to be released in the Authentics Bravo line. And just like the other Transformers figures and lines of action figures being released in 2023, the Authentics Bravo line, starting with Optimus Primal, is going to have plastic-free packaging. So, Authentics Bravo Arcee is one of the last Transformers action figures to be released inside plastic packaging, being as part of her. It's been revealed also that along with Optimus Primal, future releases of the Authentics Bravo figures will be done in the new package-free cardboard packaging. And whether or not which Transformers action figures that have already been released in the Authentics Bravo line, which of them are going to get re-releases in the future in plastic-free packaging is uncertain at this point. The Transformers Authentics line here in the United States, these figures have been found at places such as Dollar General stores, and where I live in California, the stores that sell the Authentics Bravo figures are pharmacy drug stores such as Rite Aid, Walgreens, and CVS. So those are the types of stores we will find the Authentics Bravo action figures. I think there's some stores that are based back on the East Coast that also have been places where the Authentics Bravo figures have popped up at, but you will not find these Transformers action figures at Walmart or Target. And as I said a moment ago, these action figures are terrible. These are lousy Transformers action figures. The main reason why I've been collecting them is because as the Authentics Bravo figures, the price tag for them, even though they were released back in 2017, it's only risen by a couple dollars since then. And the Authentics Bravo action figures, the average retail price tag for these figures has been, depending on where you live, it has ranged from $3 to $5. I believe I paid $6 for Bravo Arcee at my local Rite Aid pharmacy store. Like most of the Authentics Bravo figures that have been released in recent years, I don't know how many cases there are between them, but the last 3 waves of the Authentics Bravo line, including Arcee, I've only seen the figures released in the most recent waves just one time, and they're the ones that I have in my collection. So if you see Authentics Bravo Arcee, even though she's the most recently released figure to appear, I do recommend getting her because from what I've seen on the reviews, Arcee has become the best figure released in Authentics Bravo line. But that said, this is still one of the worst Arcee figures that has ever been released. So that tells you how lousy of a line the Authentics Bravo Transformers are. Part of it has to do with the fact that Arcee, in addition to having a tiny laser gun, I believe she does have a swivel joints in her elbows, so Arcee has some of the smallest moving parts out of any of the Authentics Bravo figures that have been made. And as I said before, the Authentics Bravo line, it's targeted for people in this age range. So for Arcee to have tiny parts and a tiny laser gun for an accessory piece, Arcee might be the first Authentics Bravo figure that was designed with the idea that some older adult age Transformers collectors and fans might end up getting her. But that's where the Authentics Bravo line's been. The suggestion here in the box is the target age range that Hasbro and Takara originally designed these figures to be bought by. And again, depending on where you live, they've maintained a retail price tag of about $3 to $5. I think Arcee might be the first Authentics Bravo figure to have a retail price tag of $6, but I could be incorrect. That could just be where I live in Southern California. The prices could be lower for the Authentics Bravo figures in other areas of the U.S. Yes, but I've ranted on a lot longer than I wanted to, so without further delay, let's get this stupid thing out of its box and take a close look at her in her robot mode. Alright, so here's Authentics Bravo Arcee out of her box, and yeah, there's not much to look at with her. As I said before, she has her tiny lower arms are on hinge joints at the elbow, so she has elbow joints, and then she has her tiny little laser gun. So compared to the Bravo figures that came before her, in my opinion, this is the first Authentics Bravo figure that's been designed with the implication that there could be adult age collectors that could end up buying the figure just to have in their collections. But yeah, there's not much to say about Authentics Bravo Arcee. Her head is on a ball joint, but it's hard to make her look left and right, so the ball joint that in her neck is rendered useless. Her arms can have the potential to spin 360 degrees forwards and backwards, but they're hindered by the top of the shoulder joint here. Now here's that's great. No bicep swivel at all. And again, you have hinge joints at the elbows, but her forearms are so tiny, I recommend you use those with caution. No waist swivel. There are ball joints in the hips, so legs can go backwards this far, they can go forward this far. Technically, you actually have a ball joint at the knee, and it's facing the opposite direction. That would allow knee bends due to it being a transformation joint. So you actually get more movement when you invert Arcee's knee joints rather than having them standing straight outward. And that's pretty much it for articulation. And like half of the Authentics Bravo figures here, turning Arcee around, here's what she looks like on the back. As you can see, there is nothing to the lower half of her legs. She has the front of her legs and then the sides, but that's it. There's no insides to her legs, so she's basically standing on 2 L-shaped pieces of plastic that's supporting her up when you set her down on a solid surface. And most of Arcee's weight is in her torso due to how the hood of her vehicle mode and the windshield end up forming a backpack. And so she is very top heavy, and I'm very hesitant to set her down on a flat surface. So yes, this has become, in my opinion, the worst version of Generation 1 Arcee. This is the worst U1 style Arcee action figure that's ever been released. And yeah, there is just not much to say about it. It's a lousy figure. It's unimpressive. It has poor articulation and overall this is one terrible action figure. Alright, and so for a special size comparison in her robot mode, here is Authentics Bravo Arcee surrounded by all of the figures that have been released in the Authentics Bravo line so far. Each one of these figures is worse than the last one is, although looking at them all here, as far as which ones are the worst, I actually think the designs of the Authentics Bravo figures, as terrible as they are, they've improved with each wave. The worst figures are the ones that were released in Wave 1 of the Bravo line, Optimus Prime, and Megatron. And then in Wave 2, we got Bumblebee and Starscream. Then in Wave 3, and starting with each wave since then, we've only had one figure. Wave 3, we got Grimlock. In Wave 4, we got Ratchet. And in Wave 5, we got Barricade. So I was wrong. Arcee is not from Wave 5 of the Authentics Bravo line. She's from... Oh, no, I'm sorry. Wave 1 had 4 figures. Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Megatron, Starscream. They were released in Wave 1. Wave 2 was Grimlock. Wave 3 was Ratchet. Wave 4 was Barricade. And Wave 5 has been Arcee. And yes, the Authentics Bravo figures, they're all similar in design to Arcee, although arts. Arcee is actually one of 5 of these 8 figures that have those completely hollowed out legs due to the transformation joints. And the ones that don't have hollowed out legs, they still have poor quality joints. And yes, overall, these are garbage level Transformers action figures. And as I said before, Arcee, in terms of articulation, she has the most joints, and she is, in my opinion, the best of these 8 Transformers figures. But on that note, Arcee herself is still a lousy figure, and she's become the worst Arcee figure in my collection now. And yeah, there's not much enjoyment to say about the Transformers Authentics Bravo figures. So without further delay, the video's gone on much longer than I wanted, so let's get Arcee transformed into her alt mode and wrap up the review. Alright, and so here is Arcee transformed into her alt mode. It's a tiny version of her G1 alt mode of a pink Cybertronian sports car. She has 4 tiny little plastic wheels, and so she rolls just as well as the other figures in the Authentics Bravo line do that have wheels, such as Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Ratchet, and Barricade. There's no wheels on Megatron, Starscream, or Grimlock, but yeah, she does pretty well for what she does. Her entire robot mode is folded up underneath, and her laser gun, it does form the back tail fin section for her vehicle mode, but it's a very loose fit, so if you're not too careful, the chances are that you could lose this thing at a moment's notice, so just be very careful with that. You could, if you want, have Arcee, you could try and have her hold it with one of her hands there, if you can wiggle her arm in a position where she can hold the laser gun down there, but apart from that, chances of this being lost are very high. And as I said, Arcee, compared to the other figures that have been released in the Authentics Bravo line, in my opinion, she has become the best Authentics Bravo figure that's been released. But on that note, even though she's the best of these 8 Transformers figures here, these figures, they're all just terrible Transformers action figures. The only reason I've been collecting these is because every time a new one gets released, I trick myself into thinking that it's worth paying just $5 to get these 5-inch versions of the Generation 1 Transformers characters, and then they'll expand with Beast Wars once Optimus Primal arrives. But yeah, overall, there's nothing pleasant to say about these figures. So, for the proverbial question, do I recommend getting Authentics Bravo Arcee and adding her to your Transformers collection? No, I do not. Do not buy this figure. Do not buy any of these Transformers Authentics Bravo action figures. You will regret it. Stay away from these figures if you can. And they are terrible. They're lousy. They are cheaply made. And they are overall Transformers action figures that are worthy of being tossed into the trash bin. So no, I do not recommend getting the Authentics Bravo Arcee figure. If you see her, save your money for better quality Transformers action figures, even though these guys are twice the size but half the price of core class Transformers figures. Core class Transformers are much better Transformers figures than these pathetic excuses for plastic here. But yes, this has been my review of the Transformers Authentics Bravo Arcee figure. I do not recommend getting her. She's an easy pass. Do not buy any of the Authentics Bravo figures. They are not worth the time, money, or effort to collect. So thank you guys all so much. This has been the TFN Geek. This has been a review of the Transformers action figure. That's one of the lousiest that I purchased last year in 2022. This has been my review of Transformers Authentics Bravo Arcee. I recommend avoiding this figure entirely if you can. And the only motivation to get this action figure is if you're a fan of Arcee and if you like a crappy 5-inch tall action figure of Generation 1 Arcee that doesn't have legs to stand on and has a vehicle mode that doesn't roll around that well on a flat surface, then by all means get this figure. But if not, and you want to save your $5 for something more important than a low, poor quality Transformers action figure, then by all means do so. Thank you guys all so much, and until next time, you guys, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.